Hello there, and welcome to another Genshin discussion. I wonder what will I be talking about today? Well, as the literal title of the video says, I will be talking about what Clelestia is most likely doing with the Allogenes that ascend and should become new gods. And my theory is not pretty at all. But first, what is an Allogene even? Well, we find out what they are pretty early on when talking to Venti after finishing the Mondstadt Archon quest. An Allogene is a person that has been found worthy by the gods in Clelestia to receive a vision and gain the possibility of ascension. Join the ranks of the gods in Clelestia. But the thing is that in the same dialogue with Venti, he warns us that these ascensions, and well, Clelestia in general, is not really what it seems to be. Ascending to become a god might sound fun, if that is truly what happens. The thing is though, that we haven't really heard of any Ascended being ever really interacting with the characters and NPCs we meet throughout our travels. Even in the history that we read through the logs and the different letters that appear throughout the game, we don't really hear of these people, these beings. The only case we have more info on is that of Vanessa, who did see her ascension during the manga of the game. But that's about it. The next question would be, how does one ascend to Clelestia? Well, the first step is to have a high ambition and values that align with, at least slightly, with the gods. That way, there's a high chance you'll gain a vision, and that's where your journey begins. These powerful desires that vision holders have will pretty much shape the goal that they have in order to get to the point of ascension. We see in their profile voice lines for many characters that as they grow and become more powerful, they do feel closer to this supposed ascension point, but we have not seen anything about an actual ascension yet on any of the characters we have as playable. It is possible that to get to the point it is really hard, or it might be only for specific desires. Now, how do these visions connect to the gods, and why specifically these gods? The Seven. Well, the Seven were indeed chosen based on their power and how well they did during the Archon War. But then there are cases like Rukkhadevata was actually allied with the two other gods that reigned over Sumeru. Yeah, Deshret did seem to refuse taking at least a gift from Clelestia, which most likely was a Gnosis, but he was still offered one. But still, the three companion gods did seem to be friends and everything. But it's possible that since all three of the gods were all about wisdom, that's why Rukkhadevata could take it afterwards. What I will go into is anyways mainly speculations and theories, so yeah. Either way, it seems that the visions are indeed not given directly by the gods themselves, but still play a major part in their distribution. We see this during the Inazuma quests especially, where A had the belief that mortals do not deserve the divine gift of visions anymore, so no new Electro visions were given for a very long time. So if an Archon truly desires something when it comes to visions, it seems that it will indeed happen. There's also the interesting relationship between the Divine Thrones of the Elements and visions. We know that the Hydro Divine Throne has been destroyed in the latest Archon quest in 4.2, and the Hydronosis most likely doesn't have that much power left in it since Neuvillette got his sovereign powers back. That would honestly mean that the Hydro Visions would no longer be given out. But that's not the case, as Farina did get her own vision during her story quest. Now, it is implied that Neuvillette had a hand in this and will have a hand in future Hydro Visions, and I can easily believe that. Since Clelestia stole the power of the sovereign dragons who had full control over their respective element, it makes total sense that the visions would be tied to this specific power, and if a fully powered dragon sovereign desired so, there would be more visions to be given to the people. Okay, now that I got through the setup, let's actually theorize on what Celestia might be doing with these allogenes that descend. And that, in my opinion, is imprisonment. Or death. But mainly imprisonment. Now, I know, that sounds a bit far-fetched. And I do love me some crazy theories, but I feel like it makes sense when you think on why a person gets a vision and how previously older civilizations fell because of the same thing. Ambitions. Why did older civilizations fall? Because of the ambitions of their people. It is known that for thousands of years, people, while loving the rule of the gods, they still had their own ambitions to grow and adapt. Maybe one day even be equals to those gods. These led some civilizations to do things that led to their destruction. King Deshret took in forbidden knowledge and doomed his entire kingdom, and the Conrians, which are pretty much the perfect example of this, tried to deal with abyssal power and most likely this otherworldly knowledge that led to Deshret's downfall too. So my belief is that the Archon War and the introduction of the visions and ascension was done to try and keep mortal ambitions in check. To take the people with most ambitions to Celestia and imprison them there so they can't push the people left on Teyvat further into trying to challenge the rule of the gods. Of course, the case of Conria still happens, so that might be something to disprove the theory, but who really knows how much of what Conria did was known by Celestia? Conria was after all a nation without a god and was also underground from what it seems. Plus, we now know that the gods aren't really omniscient, so people could be doing things that the gods don't know about. Celestia chose the 7 Archons to rule over the 7 nations and started distributing these visions based on the values and ambitions of the gods. The interesting part is that even the title of the chosen gods were very human aspects and things tied to humanity. Freedom, contracts, eternity, wisdom, justice, war, and love. These ideals are also shown quite well within the nations themselves, with Sumeru having an academia and being the center of education when it comes to Teyvat, as an example. Then again, there are characters that received visions but do not necessarily show the ideals of said Archon. For example, Amber isn't really a war-loving rebel, really, even though she has a pyro vision. And another interesting thing is that in the cases of Archons that have died, their successors still went on and had similar values. Makoto and A had different views on eternity, but they still had something to do with eternity. Same with Rukkhadevata and Nahida, but then again, Nahida is technically a reincarnation. And then we had Farina and False Lord for Justice, both being the god of justice. Well, that's about it from me on this topic. This mainly makes sense because we haven't really seen or heard anything about the previous people who ascended to Celestia. Well, we barely know anything about Celestia to begin with, but that is understandable. I wouldn't be too surprised if the solution to the people getting too curious for their own good in the past, before this, was the Celestial Nail, and with the thinning of the gods in Teyvat and the creation of the vision system, it was a lot easier to control who did what. Well, if you did enjoy the content, why not leave a comment, like or subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.